I needed to make Dalek costumes for a dance routine. They needed to be simple, with minimal components to enable performer quick changes into and out of costumes. And they needed to not restrict movement on stage. I also needed 6 Daleks. The complete outfit consists of 1 Dalek hoodie, 1 hard hat with Dalek accoutrements, one Dalek plunger, and 1 Dalek blaster. Exterminate! 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 I found a hard hat online that had a copper or bronze color to it in the photos. They turned out to be more matte brown than how they looked in the photos. I was planning to paint them anyway, but now they would need a full treatment rather than just a painting sparkle or shimmer boost. I started with a mock-up of the hood shape and also roughed out a placement of the Dalek crystals. I did my mock-up on what I thought would be the front of the hard hat, but I ended up installing them on the back of the hard hat due to the different extruded surfaces. I used my paper mock-up to cut out the pieces I would assemble into the hoods. I used black corrugated plastic, which works similarly to foam core. I assembled all the hood pieces with hot glue. Once the hoods were made, I prepared inserts for each. These inserts would help support the eye stalk. I was not making articulating eye stalks that would pivot up and down. Rather, I was installing them stationary, more like the converted human drones in the Matt Smith episodes. The hoods would get painted to match the helmets, while the inserts would stay black. The inserts needed to be installed after the hoods and helmet were painted. The crystals were disassembled components of solar garden lights. I used the tube of the stakes as the eye stalk and found some old webcams to use as an eyepiece. The crystals had parts that fit into the stake tubes that I cut off with the bandsaw. Once the hoods were painted and dry with the inserts installed and all the holes pre-drilled for the eye stalks, I glued the hoods onto the painted hard hats. The copper bronze paint on the hard hats and hoods was achieved with spray paint, using an overspray method that creates a speckled and irregular coating, much like a very fine spatter paint. Colors used were copper, brown, gold, silver, and a touch of black. The hot glue around the perimeter would require touch-up paint around the hood. I positioned the crystals for best-looking placement. The shape of the hard hats is not a perfect match for the Dalek helmet, so I chose a position that would look best rather than trying to be 100% faithful to the source material. Using sheets of friendly plastic, I traced out all the discs for the eye stalks. 6 large ones, 12 medium ones, and 12 small ones. Again, I made concessions in accuracy due to the scale of my helmet. The Dalek full-scale eye stalks have 6 discs, and I scaled mine down to 5. I glued all the discs in place with hot glue, being careful not to overheat and melt the friendly plastic. I tried using CA glue, but it was adhering only to the silver paint on the tube, which then began to slough off. The hot glue was going to be more secure, and the messiness would not be seen without up-close scrutiny. I pre-drilled the discs with the center hole before I cut them out. This would be easier than trying to hold each individual disc while I drilled. I used a Forstner bit for drilling all the holes in the eye stalk, in these discs, in the hood insert, and in the helmet itself. The crystals were secured in place with CA glue, but I came back later with epoxy to better hold them in place. The eye stalks were also installed with epoxy glue and a little hot glue on the inside once the epoxy cured. Once everything was complete, I installed the hard hat adjustable cradle and did a video test. Exterminate! 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 I bought 6 plungers that had black rubber so I wouldn't need to paint the plunger portion. The handle would get painted silver. The rubber was very thick where I needed to trim it. I had 2 placement options where I could trim it, and I chose the bigger plunger position because I thought it would read better on stage, even though the smaller cut position would probably be a better scale. I couldn't easily cut through the rubber with my X-Acto knife nor with a box cutter. The rubber was too thick. I tried by hand first because I thought I would have less control of the rubber on the bandsaw, but I ended up trimming them on the 14-inch bandsaw by being very careful and wary of the tendency of the saw to pull the rubber into the blade. The Dalek weaponry was made of 1/2-inch PVC, which I filled with a 1/2-inch dowel to give it rigidity and to provide support to the aluminum armature wire where it was glued in place. I cut 36 wire pieces with the 1/4-inch armature wire. The Dalek blasters have 8 wires each and are probably made of thinner wire, but I chose the 1/4-inch wire for rigidity, and it would have been clunky with more on each blaster, so mine had 6 on each. I bent my wires into shape with a shop-made bending template. I pre-drilled all the 1/4-inch holes in the PVC, then painted them silver. The armature wire was already silver because it was made of aluminum, so it didn't need painting. I did a final fit for each wire on the blaster, then glued everything in place with 5-minute epoxy. I taped around the armature wire with painter's tape to keep everything in place while the epoxy cured. Final touches on the blasters. Trim the tip flush. Shape it into a concave tip with a Dremel drum sander attachment, and finally paint the tip black. Seek, locate, destroy. The supremacy of the Dalek Empire must be achieved. Exterminate! 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 Seek, locate, destroy. Seek, locate, destroy. Seek, locate, destroy. The supremacy of the Dalek Empire is paramount. Exterminate! 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 I intended to do some additional touches for accuracy, but decided they would add very little to the ultimate 25 seconds of on-stage appearance. If I make a different scale Dalek for another project, I would include details like the fins around the eyepiece that some Daleks have, and the armature that surrounds the crystals on the helmet.